Hi, Richard. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Feels like ages.
We've got great responses from your last few visits.
Brilliant.
That's great advice. So, today's show is the big question. How much does a wedding photographer cost?
Oh, that question. Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to start with just from a quick search online, the Weddings Online and Confetti.ie surveys for 2018 put the average in around $1,650. Now, I don't know if that includes an album or not. Because that's an average price.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I would say it probably doesn't include an album.
It doesn't?
No. Very few photographers include an album. And this is one thing you have to watch out for. If they are including an album, it's at that price, it's probably going to be literally a very basic album. Black leather album, 10 pages or something like that.
Okay.
So don't be fooled by kind of wedding packages where they include the album. You know,
on a quick side note, what's the average cost for an album then?
Anything from €300 to €1,000, depending on what you put on. So your album is consisting of three things.
Like that's something people should budget for, I suppose.
Absolutely.
At the start, yeah.
It's something I think, look, you know, before a wedding or when you plan a wedding, it's one of these things that you're not going to do anything about until after the wedding.
Yeah.
So my logic on this is wait till after the wedding. You know, it's have something in mind to do after the wedding, but you know, you have enough to decide about before the wedding. You know, the last thing you need to be thinking about is what kind of colour I want, what material I want and stuff like that. Like all my brides get to choose everything from literally the material that goes on the cover, what goes on the cover, the number of pages, all that kind of stuff. So all those decisions can be made after a wedding. So
but budget, I suppose, somewhere between 300 and 1,000 you said. So around 600 just to allow.
Yeah, about 500 or 600 is the average wedding album.
Yeah. So getting back to the photographer price. So you saying photographer on their own for a day is in around that, 1,650?
Yeah, I would say, it's around 1,650, 1,750. Generally, you're looking at it from...
That's for full day coverage.
For full day coverage, yeah. About 1,750 would be the average. You will get some, like we'll say, if there's a photographer who's in high demand, he'll charge about $2,000. Okay. And the reason he's doing that is he's basically factoring that, you know, if he's only doing a certain amount of weddings a year, then he's not going to charge as much as... he's going to charge more than your average photographer. Yeah. That's another warning as well, in that if you have a photographer that's quite cheap, he's probably doing a lot of weddings a year. So he's doing 70, 80 weddings. Yeah. And, you know, you run the risk that he's going to burn out.
There's no creative.
There's no creative. Yeah. It's literally, he's just a factory. He's just putting out the same wedding every time. Yeah, yeah. So look for a photographer that literally only does maybe 30 to 40 weddings a year. You know, he's a guy that's going to get creative. And
is there any factors that make a price, say if somebody comes to you, go up or down? Like, can you get less coverage?
Yeah, so like any of my brides, they have the option to change their packages right up to about a month before the wedding. Okay. Because their budgets are fluctuating. So sometimes they think they have a huge budget, some things kind of come off the budget and stuff like that. Yeah. So I'd like to give them as much flexibility. That's what I try to
do with this little show as well, is just to people come to me with the band and go, our budget is this, and you're like, where did you get that figure? Because it doesn't show up anywhere as an average, and it's way lower. You know,
don't believe the hype. Don't believe Facebook. Don't believe. It's all false news.
Yeah, I think
false news.
It'd be nice to get out a definitive kind of average for these things, that people, when they are setting the budget at the start, they know, okay, I have to allow about 1,700 for a photographer. Yeah, you know,
like a lot of those kind of surveys and stuff like that, they will go and they will price, we'll say 20 photographers, and they'll basically get the price from those 20, and then they'll get the average from that, and that's where the average is coming from. It's across the board, from the cheap ones to the expensive ones. Yeah, you know.
Does the time of year matter to the price? Are summer weddings more expensive than...
It shouldn't, because a summer day in Ireland can be rainy. You know, there's some weddings I've done in the 30th. One date always stands out in my mind, like the 30th of December. It seems to always be sunny. Yeah. You know, it seems to be kind of one of these days that you get like loads of sunshine. It's cold, but it's a beautiful day. Yeah. You know, that type of thing. I don't think it should matter. Like if a photographer is working all year round, a lot of photographers want to work all year round because they want to kind of have their cash flow kind of a bit even over year. So you don't want a scenario where you're working during the summer and then you're quiet during the winter. You know? Yeah.
So couples get in all these prices. Okay, they price all these photographers. What advice would you give them when they're going through the prices? So they've got photographer A over here, and he's 1,550, and then they've got B, he's 1,750. There's another guy 2,100. There's another girl 2,500. What advice would you give them processing that?
Well, when you're comparing the prices, make sure it's the same package. So literally get a base price. So literally, how much does it cost to cover the whole day?
Okay.
So something like that. So how much will you cost to cover from the bridal prep to the first dance? And if you get that same price from 5 different suppliers, you'll get an idea of the average.
Yeah.
You will always find there'll be some that will be down the very lower thing. They're probably starting out, they're learning, they mightn't have done a lot of weddings. So one factor to always consider is experience. Ask the photographer, how many weddings have you done? If he's only done 10 weddings and he's quite cheap, you know, it's like I ask people, look, do you want to be the guinea pig? Do you want to be the one that, you know...
They could still be a great photographer.
Absolutely.
But it's just, there's an element of risk.
Everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah, there is an element of risk, I suppose,
Yeah.
involved. So you're saying, when you're going through your prices, try and compare like with like from each photographer. I suppose one of the easier things about booking a photographer is you can see their work online. Yeah. So you can say, okay, that guy's a little bit more expensive, but I don't like his style. Yeah. Yeah, I like her. She's, you know, even though she's a few €100 cheaper. Yeah. So on how much a wedding photographer costs, we're saying in or around €1,600 to €1,700. Yeah. And then just for down the line after the wedding, be allowing in your head about 5 or 6 for an album.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so that's your kind of average cost when you're doing out your when you're doing out your budget.
And like here's a tip for you. Like we'll say a lot of photographers will kind of be able to kind of tailor a package to suit what you want, you know. So like one tip, and
communicate. I think that's it with the band too. Sometimes you'll get an inquiry, and how much are you? Give them the price. That's it. You don't hear where if they came back and said, well, look, our budget is this. And you said, okay, well, I can do this, or I can take this off, or, you know. Yeah. I'm sure it's the same for photographers. You can tailor to a certain degree, you know. Yeah,
exactly. Like the most important thing is, like, don't have your photographer sitting around for hours and you're not taking any photographs. Yeah. So a lot of people don't factor that in. Like there is kind of times where you don't necessarily need a photographer. Like, so while you're sitting down with the meal, the photographer is literally doing the same thing. He's sitting down having a meal, you know. But like,
but then he has to.
Exactly. But he has to have a break. I agree. Yeah. But what I'm getting at is there's ways of saving money when it comes to. So for example, speeches. So a lot of people will have the speeches after the meal. Yeah. So if you're having your photographer hold on for the speeches, he's sitting around for 2 hours until after the meal.
So that's going to be extra cost on
It's going to be extra cost. So why not have your speeches at the start of the meal and then he's gone and you let him go and it'll be cheaper.
On an average, on that point, I suppose. Well, I'm sure it's always extra cost to have a photographer hanging around. Is it normal to hang around till the first dance?
Because
there's a big difference. If the speeches are before the meal, that means your photographer might be gone home 6 o'clock. Yeah. Whereas if it's after the first dance, it could be 10:30.
Yeah, exactly.
So like
there's on average about 4 or 5 hours of a difference. So a lot of people think it's only 2 hours, but
is that worth in your opinion? If a couple are worried about the budget, would you let your photographer off early, or is it worth paying the extra and get them hanging around?
Well, you have to kind of consider what's going to happen. We'll say from the meal till we'll say the first dance or the dancing, and when you want to send them away, you're going to have basically sometimes you'll have the speeches. You might have an entertainment package. So like Scruffy Duff, you might be doing something during the meal. You might have Irish dances, something after the meal. You might have something going on like that. And then after the meal, you're going to have an hour when the band are setting up. And that's that lull or that time is perfect for getting group shots, for getting loads of your friends together, get your hen party together, get your work friends. And that's when I tend to leave those photographs. So one recommendation I always give is leave your group shots and your friend shots and stuff like that, leave it till after the meal. Yeah. Because if you try to do it during the reception, you're going off looking for people. Some people have checked in, some people are gone up to rooms, some people at the bar. Yeah. It's very hard to.
And you're wasting valuable time. Whereas you have that hour to.
Yeah. You can do it later on.
That's great advice. Yeah. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for coming in.
No problem at all.
And so if you're setting your budget in around €1,600-1,700 and 3 to 5 for an album. Yeah. And just compare like with like.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Richard.
No problem at all.